Okay, good morning. So that's the title which I've been given. It's not my title, it's been given by Andreas. And the point is, I'm not talking like previous speaker about ongoing projects. My task is really trying to make some reflection and also to illustrate some very preliminary work in something which I think myself being almost an impossible task, which is merging textile technology, biosensors, wearable and non-invasive. So I think that's what it is. So I will start quickly by making not a state of the art, but say something about obviously the wearable generation as it is. And as you know, most of this comes from wearable integration of a more or less existing technology, except for a few cases where you just look for miniaturization, transmission, etc. And so there are plenty of these applications. So this is a technology side, if you want. But I took time also to make a quick reflection. We'll take more to discuss. I'm not sure I'm saying something very appropriate, but I've been always thinking that, obviously if you want to do something wearable with somebody going around, etc., and if you look for what you want to measure by biosensors, I think I have not to forget that the analytical approach, which is what is mostly used, is not really what the medical doctor does. Analysis by number, quantification of substances is one of the tools. I think the physician will never make a diagnosis just simply based on numbers. So what they do, and I'm not an MD, but I've been talking with them, so if you want to say to this mathematically, it's just a multifactorial analysis in which you cluster your information into this, and then you do some sort of pattern analysis, which more or less is unconscious, and you map, obviously you have a school, that's a serious profession, and you map symptoms, data, and other things. Try to find a common space for diagnosis. That's nothing to do with monitoring glucose, which is specific analytes, is a specific substance, etc. So, but anyway, analytical is one of the things, but it's just one tool. And if you close the loop in the sense you give you insulin, that's fine, because medicine has already found a way. But that's not the only approach. And by the way, it's horribly difficult because you have to calibrate, you get numbers, you have to have references, stability, it's awful. But anyway, synthetic, I would call synthetic is a very different thing. Like in artificial nose or tongues, you really don't measure one specific substance because we are not interested in a specific substance. You just fingerprint substances by measuring with non-very specific sensor, different analytes, and really mapping again by principal component analysis or other techniques. And essentially, like in a coffee, you don't want to know how much, caffeine is there. You just want to smell good or smell bad. So what this means is there are technology for that, which are well known, like the artificial nose and tongue, or electronic nose, sorry, nothing implantable. So the synthetic approach may be something more useful if you want to go through trends, because you change a pattern. And the number are not so important. You don't need to calibrate. You need to be stable, more or less stable. So I would say, not only analytic is important, synthetic is another way. But then symptomatic, I don't know if it's correct or not. Why not to measure sometimes symptoms? Because you don't want to have a full clinic on you. So you just need, if my symptoms are really going fuzzy, and I get confused, and I get troubled, I do this by symptoms very often. So why not to make a pathology-specific symptom analyzer? That is another option. The more and more you get older, and I'm going to that stage, so syndrome, it's another point. But syndrome means you get multi-pathology. None of them eventually being so terrible to classify yourself just with one pathology. Everybody is a multi-pathology object. You know. When one becomes predominant, they call you tuberculotic or whatever. But so the point is, multiple pathological conditions, especially in the elderly, are really what give problem to people. So why not make a syndromic monitor, whatever it means? So this would be long. I don't want to make it long, but I would say, why don't we look a little bit broader in the apparatus of doctors? Okay, and another point is disposable or durable? Always wearable anyway. So usually, you know, the glucose watch, most of you know, or this system, which is not for monitoring, but it's a sweat collection system, mostly for drugs addicts, used by the police, or mostly in the state by other, not really diagnostics. But, you know, why don't you use diapers, all these things which are disposable? And there are some. Or like the SALIVA lens. Why don't you use contact lenses? So the point is, to measure what? More than what, where? Because obviously, Andrea added another point, non-invasive. And so non-invasive means we forget blood. We don't want to penetrate through skin. And so at the end, we have these things plus a few other, was reluctant to make explicit, but essentially excretion, secretion, or whatever, something which from inside go outside. And there is a problem. There are several problems. The main problem that medicine has found, and bioanalytical chemistry found more useful, more easy, which is difficult, to make this on urine, that's obvious, but mostly on blood. And if you want to get diagnostic or even monitor information on the other fluid, like sweat, tears, you don't find much. Saliva, you don't find much in terms. There is not the point there is not much inside. There is a lot inside. But there are not adopted protocols, except in a few cases, on cortisol on saliva or other things. But you don't find a medical practice on that, not very well established. And obviously, how? How? You cannot, again, go to wearable. You cannot, again, make a sort of Frankensteinian person, as Paolo has shown with all this electronic. And so you want to use common stuff like Band-Aids, handkerchiefs, diapers, or whatever. Or, obviously, shirts, etc. So that's another point. You would like to monitor maybe wound. You know, wound monitoring is especially chronic wound I'm talking about. Diabetic or decubitus, or they are really an important cause of death and pain. Wound maybe, that's point you want to measure some exudate from the wound. Or tears, or saliva. Saliva, etc., again, you don't want to measure in this way, surely. But maybe, you know, I've been in China when they are more open than us and spitting everywhere. But we can maybe spit in an handkerchief sometime. But sweat is probably one of the election fluid to deal with. And I have to run fast, but you know, essentially, I put this simply because this channel, you know, sweat is controlled by several things. I don't want to make a story long, but obviously thermal, obviously others, obviously also vegetative control. The electrodermal response is based on that. But anyway, we secrete continuously sweat, more or less, and through the ducts, they go here, and you have insensitive perspiration or massive sweating, depending on physical energy. So sweat is potentially a resource of non-invasive information. In fact, the community, the European community, has funded, but I don't want